Yo, what's up? After learning all the basics and everything about perks and the strongest perk builds for low-level soldiers, it's time to show you the optimal strongest builds for max level soldiers, meaning all the level 2, 3 and 4 soldiers. Level 2 for the classes that are capped at 2, like engineers and tank gunners and so on. Level 3 for the tier 3 capped soldiers, like machine gunners and snipers. And level 4 for the assaulters. Before we do that, we take a look first at the worst perks, because many people had questions about why I basically never use certain perks. So here's a quick overview why certain perks are very bad, specifically much worse than they look like. Keep in mind, since this is Gaijin, many of these perks, especially the complicated ones, are not functioning as they are described. In order to get the real way how these perks works, you need to read the game files that are not available here. They're linked down below, but most players obviously don't want to spend their time reading the game files just to be able to play the game. So yeah, it's just badly designed and not really well explained. So here's a quick overview about the bad perks. And this first one is gonna get some of you butthurt. Get ready, medpack usage speed. Why is that bad? Very simple. It's quite expensive. It costs as much as faster walking, and faster walking is obviously very much useful. And instead of healing yourself faster, you can just switch to the next soldier in your squad and let the bot heal himself. And it doesn't matter whether you're using the one soldier or the other soldier. Overall, it's making you much better, because even with this perk, it still takes some time. Instead, you could just use the other soldier, the other bot as a real soldier. So this is just almost useless. Yeah, there are corner cases where you want to save your one engineer, yeah, but in most situations this is useless or has a very low efficacy, but it's a very expensive perk. Instead of spending 6 here, you could spend 6 here and have a much better setup. Or you can spend 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. So yeah, this is an overpriced and not really useful perk. Then faster climbing is very nice to have, but when you really need to be climbing quickly, usually when you're under fire, climbing is still too slow. Yep, you can get it to double, but why should you pay 8 green perks just to climb double as fast? Because climbing is something that's very rarely useful. Whereas faster aiming and faster walking is always useful. So yeah, this is another ridiculously overpriced perk. If it would cost half the price, I would consider it as a nice perk. Or even better, if this perk was here in the first row, where you need to use filler perks, then yes. But not here. And for the red perks, the regeneration is bad, because what this perk doesn't tell you, it's completely different than what it explains. This perk implies that per level, which at least costs only 1, you get 20% more regeneration amount out of combat, and you get a faster speed. Now, this perk sounds like you will regenerate, well, more than usual, although this is already strange, because why shouldn't you it implies that there's a passive regeneration effect in the game, which yeah, there is. Your soldiers are slowly gaining vitality, but it's capped. And even if you max out this perk, you can only heal a maximum of 6 life points, which doesn't even stack with vitality. So if you have vitality, this perk doesn't even get better. First of all, this is horrible game design. You should always let players create cool combos. This game design doesn't even allow you to do that. And B, if you max this out, you have a weak bitch-ass perk that most often won't even let you survive one shot. So this is one of the most useless perks in the whole game. Completely bad and horrible. Then explosion effect. If this perk would cost 1, it could be nice to have, but it's just overpriced and very rarely used. Usually if there's an explosion, you're dead. Yeah, so another similar perk is this, additional stability when you take damage. Maybe useful for flame troopers, but even then, I'd rather have faster running. Yeah, so I'd rather have more stamina. Yeah. I'd rather have more stamina. It's fine as a filler perk, but nothing else. Also keep in mind, bad perks are competing with good perks. And I would always max out my stamina before I put something into this. And I also rather have more healing, because unlike this perk actually is useful. Yeah, this perk actually gives you, it lets you heal very nice. It's very expensive though, so also too overpriced. This perk is much more useful than this, but yeah, like completely useless perks overall. Then grenade throwing perk, also quite useless. I explained it already in the second entry of the series. If you have this, if you don't have it on every soldier, you will constantly miss your throws, and it completely messes with your intuition. And whenever you have to think about where a grenade will land, you're getting slowed down extremely. And this is the opposite of being a good player. It's gonna make you worse as a player to have this perk. So yeah, and it's quite expensive, and these perks are much better. Though sadly this one doesn't synergize with melee charging. It only synergizes with the attack at the end of the charge if you stab someone. So yeah, but it's still one of, well, these are perfect filler perks, and this is the next best thing. And then the last useless perk is this here. This perk is also completely badly explained. The perk implies that you plus 10% down stay time before death, meaning the amount of time you spend while you're downed, it gets increased. Question for 2 yellow, only 10%? Why not more, but okay. And then the actual good part, greater chance to get in downed state upon taking fatal damage. So instead of dying, you will just get downed, which can be quite useful. And in my last year's entry, before I actually read all the actual details about how these perks work, there were cool combos like getting better healing, get a faster healing, and getting this, and then you can theoretically combo it with this, and then you get theoretically very tanky soldiers. Problem is, all of this doesn't work, because as you figured out, these perks don't even work the way they explained, and they're just bad, yeah? If you want tanky soldiers, Vitality is the only perk that actually helps. This is why everyone is taking it. I'd much rather have more stamina and run. But if you want survivability, this is the only perk that helps, and you're basically forced to use it, because surviving one more shot from an enemy weapon, in many cases even 2 more shots if it's low level SMGs, is extremely strong. Much better than anything else basically. Now, here's the biggest problem with this perk. The second part, the actual attractive part, isn't even working, because the first point gives you a little bit higher chance to survive, and the others don't. Which is even false advertising, because this is not what the perk is doing, so the description sucks completely. This perk is one of the worst overall. You may be inclined to spend 10 yellow on this perk, but guess what? All you do is get schlonged, because you don't even get the actual good effect. So yeah. And then of course there's like the duality of the vertical and horizontal recoil. This always has to be depending on the weapons you equip, whether you want this or this. Before we start with the highest tiered soldiers, we go to a special case, the Rifleman II, who, unlike the superior class, Rifleman III, has 3 fewer points overall, but he has a much better starter perk. He comes with plus 5% additional running, or additional sprinting, that you can combine with the plus 15% running, and then he profits from the intrinsic plus 9% running, so you basically get plus 30% running, which is insane, because anything that's closing out to plus 50% running, or movement speed in general, makes the whole thing unrealistically fast. If you would see someone running is 50% faster than a normal human, it would look unreal, and plus 30% is already very close to that. So if you want a soldier that's very fast, this is exactly what you would go to. And the best part is, since it's a rifleman, you can put him in basically every squad. So you can always have 1 or 2 soldiers in your squad that are specialized on quickly getting somewhere, whereas your other soldiers usually will get the fighter specialization of having faster aim speed or whatever. So yeah, extremely useful, extremely flexible class that you don't want to miss out on. Many people overlook the Rifleman II, thinking Rifleman III are just automatically better. And since you already have so much additional running, its additional running speed, if stacked so much together, partially acts like additional stamina, because you will drain at the same speed, but you will you will cross more distance in the same time. So you won't even have to run for as long as a normal soldier. So this means you don't even absolutely need the additional stamina. Instead, you can put it into breath holding, which also makes filling up the first row much easier. And then you can fill out the rest with whatever you need, either maximum bolt action perks or for higher BRs, more vertical recoil reduction perks. Keep in mind, the principle here stands that half of the overall perk number that you see on top here gives you a passive bonus. The green perks give you additional sprinting. So if you have 18 green, you get plus 9% additional running, which is extremely good. If you have 18 vitality, you get half of it as additional stamina. Very nice. Almost one of these for free. In this case, if you compare both, obviously the green perks are more valuable than the red ones, because stamina is quite cheap to have additionally, but the sprinting speed is quite expensive. So the green perks overall are more valuable, and the yellow ones give you vertical recoil reduction. This is important to keep in mind because having 18 gives you 9, and this oftentimes can make the decision whether you want to get a lot of additional vertical recoil or theoretically the horizontal recoil